afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our summer retreat on this June 24th of 2025. Thank you for attending. I know everybody just wanted to be outside today, working in their yards. All right. Doug Madison. Here. Perry.
Here.
B. Green. Here. Ms. Pick.
Here.
David Arthur.
Here.
Okay, everybody's in attendance. Those from the town, thank you for showing up. Those on video, thank you for showing up. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, this summer retreat, we are making some decisions, so to make the public aware. To start that off, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, budget amendment, project ordinance, lien is all approved. Those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, update on projects and debt insurance timeline.
Good evening. Good afternoon.
Did council to go over that consent, Shane, or?
Well, I would add just a couple things, and I put up here, thank you first. So we thank Hillary as she's going out the door for the homemade food that we're all partaking in today. Thank you, Hillary, for putting together the wonderful food and the fruit and all the things that it took to get to where we are today. So thank you, Hillary. And then BA, or budget amendment, thank you to Tasha. The budget amendment you have is the last one of the year. It's to true up for the audit. So as the audit starts soon, here in about 2 months or less, we need to have everything as in order as we can, budget-wise. So a lot of what you see in there is just moving money from one side to the other, etc. It's not asking for anything new necessarily as much as it's moving stuff around. That being said, that was budget amendment 15. We had 36 at this point last year, and about that number the year before. So just want to say publicly thank you. 15 is less than half of 36, which is fantastic. Our budget that you just passed, our goal is to always make sure that we're staying on budget, which is what we do, but our adjustments come a lot of times because of new revenues, etc. But 15 is better than 36. So I just wanted to make sure I said thank you for that. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak for just a moment on the consent agenda. Quick updates on some projects. You've heard these things. There's a few things maybe that's a little bit new. And our debt. So we are about to issue or ask you all to consider issuing a piece of debt. And I'll go over what that timeline looks like. And then we get into our discussion phase. Parking, shuttle transportation, food trucks, cemetery, and code of conduct. A lot of these we've talked about. So we're going to rehash some things and kind of see where we are with these topics and what our next steps are. So, all right, starting with updates on projects. These are things that I think you've probably heard, but I just want to go quickly back over. Our Main Street Water and Sewer project needs at least one more moment, I think, before we finalize it, which we financially finalized it by receiving the final check from the state today. So we are finally paid in full and complete with the final project invoicing on the Main Street project. Just a rehash, water in the end, sewer for a good chunk of that, manhole circuit connections, all the things that took place on Main Street that had been needing to take place for the last 50 years. Kudos to the bottom here, Representative Pickett, Senator Ballard at the time for allocating $4.8 million for this project. This is and will remain for at least quite some time, I'm assuming, the largest project the town had undertaken, right at $5 million. It is now complete. It was completed on time within the scheduled time limit, and it was about $500,000 under budget, give or take just a little bit. That's a big number out of $5 million. We were able to take the budget savings and roll that into the Maple Street 221 and Green Street water and sewer. We did use some bond money to offset the extra cost that it took. The majority of those projects were from the savings that we had on Main Street, which is, again, kudos to staff and everyone taking part in project management not only on time is a big deal, but if you can be under budget, fantastic. Thank you to Representative Pickett for going to the state and allowing them, or asking them, and then allowing for us to reallocate those funds to pay for these other pieces. So Main Street, water and sewer, manholes, fire hydrants, connections, complete. Maple Street, water and sewer complete. 221, water and sewer complete. And Green Street, water and sewer complete. If you've been out the last couple nights, you've seen the milling equipment. We apologize if it's been disruptive. They've been efficient, I will say that. They will finish milling tonight. They have completed from end to end, from South Main to Jeannie Stevens last night. The night before, on Sunday night, they went from North Main to 221 and out to Green Street. So what they have left, 221 to Jeannie Stevens, they've asked our police department to assist, and we've done so far. We're hopefully getting the cars off the street tonight. That being said, the milling will be complete tonight. Next step is paving. As of right now, the paving schedule has them slated for Sunday night. Again, remember next week is a short week for them, so I don't know what they can do in the few days that they have, but the weather's good. Hopefully they're on the same efficient train that the milling was done on, which they had originally said up to a week. 3 days is pretty good, I would say. But again, apologize for any disruption, but it's not work. I think it's going extremely efficient.
The milling is smoother than what was there.
Yeah.
Doug, since you mentioned that, I mean, maybe we ought to leave it like it is, we'll have to spread less salt.
Exactly.
It does provide some room. One change that I didn't share with you all, the Green Street and Maple Street was scheduled to be paved this week as well. Given the fact that DOT came in when they did start milling, Moretz would like to wait until they're complete so they can tie everything back in. So as soon as Moretz is complete with the paving, or as soon as Main is complete, Moretz will come in. So that will be the week after the 4th at this point. And they'll tie everything back in, make sure everything's smooth, etc. So the Green Street, Maple Street paving will take place the week after the 4th. So whatever that is, the 7th, I guess, the week of the 7th is when that's going to take place. So that's a little bit delayed from what I had said originally, but they feel like it'd be a better connection. So we're fine with that on our end as well. One thing that we don't know, again, with the paving starting Sunday night, and they've got 3 nights, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. They can't work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. They can come back the following Monday. So they're going to take essentially a week off. We don't know where we're going to be for the parade. We don't know where we're going to be for the 4th. So we'll just have to work through that, whether we've got lines or not lines, or paving or not paving. But to Doug's point, or whoever made that point, I think the surface that's out there now is arguably better than what the surface was. So we'll go through that. Main Street project, this is the last time I think I'll give you an update outside of maybe something on paving, but largest project town's ever taken on. Thank you to the state, Representative Pickett, Ballard, and others that have been part of this, and to you all for approving it and moving it forward. It's now essentially complete as soon as we get the pavement back on the road. Memorial Park, yes sir.
When's the ribbon cut?
Well, I think once we get everything striped, let's do a ribbon cutting.
I think we should.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a few weeks, we'll plan it. Maybe we'll plan it around a council meeting or something along those lines. We'll do it that way. I think we definitely should do a ribbon cutting. Invite everyone. So if okay with you, we'll shoot for maybe the August council meeting. That gives everybody a chance to make sure everything's complete, dishes and all that stuff's worked. And we'll go from there. Memorial Park's well underway. That's the overview of it. I think everybody here has seen it multiple times, but again, for the public. New playground piece is in and open. I've got some pictures here for you, or you can look out the window and see the kids in it right now. Volleyball court is completed as well. They're finished with the backfilling, and they'll move this fence back later on this week, and it'll be open for activity. Sidewalk poured here in front of, or on the back side of Park and Rec and the police station. They've got one more section they're going to pour, I believe, later this week, and then that section will be open as well. And then what that will leave will be the tennis courts into the football courts, basketball courts, etc. here. They're also already starting work and doing the foundation on the picnic shelter. So the playground is done and it's open. Kids have been on it for about a week now. Volleyball court's done as well, and that fence should be moved back here within the next few days. Concrete work is well underway. They're hoping to have that back side open before the 4th. There's a meeting tomorrow for us to confirm that, but we were told that their goal was to have the back side of the Park and Rec building back open before the 4th, which will help out with traffic flow, etc. Shelters under construction, Discourse football courts is next, and then Longford's kind of that last piece, putting the sidewalks, all that stuff back in on Longford. Here is the playground. This is before we move the fence. This fence is now moved out of the way, but climbing wall has been well received, but nothing like the spinny ride. I don't know, but there's usually 3 or 4 kids in line waiting for the spinny ride. And then this may be the best volleyball court in all of the high country. If you watched or had any chance to see how they built this, this goes down 5 feet. So there is 3 feet worth of gravel and 2 feet worth of sand on this volleyball court. But they dug down, is it 5 feet or 6 feet they dug down? I was thinking 5. I think is what they dug down. So there is 2 feet of just sand on the sand. So that'll be open here for the 4th. So Memorial Park is moving along. Any questions? USDA is going to be the next thing that you will start hearing. We met with McGill and all the official folks last Thursday in this room. The holdup has been and is now complete with the lift station in Mayhew, because where it's at, the age of the current one, trying to build back in the same footprint, not disturbing the creek, not messing with the bats and all the things that are down there. They're good. They've signed off on it. So we are going to be bringing to you all here in the next little bit the approval process for the bid to go out to bid. You've already approved everything. USDA's already approved it. Only thing we need to do is get it out to bid and then approve the bid. Is what it is. But again, just for those that may not realize what it is, 4.6 million. Our interest rates are 3.5. We locked those in back last June, so a year ago now. Replacement of Mayhew lift station completely, and then a tremendous amount of upfitting at the water plant and wastewater plant. Essentially bringing our older, outdated piping, flocculators, bar screens, aeration equipment up to current, making it much more efficient. And then a big piece of that is the SCADA system, our alarm system. You know, we have something there now that we've put in place since July, a couple years ago, of the major leak we've had. But this will put a full-fledged SCADA alarm system in place in both places. Have your bid 2025, that's coming, I would say, in the next 60 days, based on our conversation with them last week. Again, that was a little bit slow. Not slow because of anyone's fault, just slow because of the environmental piece of the Mayhew lift station. Questions on USDA? FEMA and Alene, wanted to give an update. All work is complete. I shared this last time. The one thing that I didn't share is now all monies have been recovered. For what we've put out, we're not waiting on anything from FEMA at this point. The piece that we've been waiting on with Valley View has now come in. That came in yesterday. I received a text that the soil samples that were done and the results of those soil samples, FEMA has approved. So they located those. So now we're back to actually putting out to bid this project with the use of soil nails, a retaining wall, backfilling, etc. So what we had originally proposed 7 months ago, 6 months ago, that was originally denied, that was then changed and was requested by FEMA for soil samples, have now come back, and we're back to where we were before, and FEMA's okay with that, so that's good. At one point, FEMA had said, no, we're gonna offer you $122,000. We said we think this is more like $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. So if you recall all these conversations, everything else is done, everything else is completed, and thank you again, Tasha, for working through the FEMA process. But all of our monies have been recovered at this point, prior to June 30th.
We're probably the only one
Yes, I would say so.
that can say it.
How many projects did we have open?
At least 15.
15 projects, and we've received monies for reimbursement for all 15. Debris, ditches, culverts, slope failures, road failures, interconnects, all that stuff.
And I will say, Shane or myself both spoke with someone from FEMA every day since September
Yep.
last year. So they
So-
probably got tired.
One question mark we had right here a couple of weeks ago, even during the budget, was whether or not we were going to be out of FEMA money. We aren't, so we recovered that now. So big deal for sure. Questions on the FEMA?
No questions on FEMA, but I'd like to make note, I know it's been brought to your attention, but Goforth Road is starting to, up there just past your house going towards Green Park, is starting to give way. So we might not need to let DOT know. It's washed out.
What area in particular? Golf course side
Or
or?
golf course side.
Okay, all Yeah, I'll let them know, and see what we can do with that. Did want to just take a minute before we get into the debt. Again, this is a pretty short update. If you've got questions on other items that's not on the agenda, be glad. Other things that we did put on here, just want to say thank you to the department heads while they're here for the work that's taken place just in the past year. Child Care Center, we've talked about endlessly and just the success rate, so thank you to Jim Brown and all the work that's happened there. We've talked about Maple Street, Green Street, Main Street, et cetera, Memorial Park. Laurel Lane Spillway, Corey headed that up this past year. Just don't want to forget some of these things that have taken place in the last 12 months, but that spillway was something we talked about for years, and within just a short amount of time, Corey had led through a project scope with Tyler and one of our contractors, and I think it'll be there forever, given the work that has been done, hopefully. We've survived some pretty significant rain in the last few weeks, so far, so good. It's doing pretty well. Matt's on vacation, he's out west, but to his staff and all the work, Mark and everyone with the reservoir, the lift stations, and all the work that we've done on the water and sewer side, the reservoir itself, tremendous amount of work. If you've gone out there, new intakes, new valves, et cetera. Again, we now know our depths, which is huge. We know what valves work, all of them, which before they didn't. So the drought that had taken place starting this time last year into September 27th caused us to do a lot of things that we normally wouldn't have done, spend a lot of money on the intake and the reservoir and the valves, et cetera, but all well worth it. I think we met with even Doug and Johnny out there during that time, and there was questions that got answered that had been out there for ever. So we got some good things there. We'll talk about parking today. We'll talk about the enforcement piece and other things on that. We've also, in the past 12 months, put our water meter system fully in place. I think that's working extremely well. Purchase some property, which we'll talk about some of those things here in just a little bit. But overall, just wanted to say thank you. And if you have questions on anything project related or what's coming up, thank you to these folks for the past 12 months and all the hard work that's been put into. If you count USDA, which is not maybe fair, but it's a piece of that, about $12 million worth of projects in the last 12 months, give or take. So a whole lot of work. So thank you to them. Thank you to you all for allowing us to do so. Questions on projects before we get into that?
No, just to add on what you said about up there at the reservoir, we may have had to spend it sooner than what we wanted, but it definitely did.
Yes.
We found out a lot of stuff. We found out stuff Johnny and I didn't do.
We definitely did. So, yeah, the drought helped out, and then the drought was over, right? Pretty quickly. So, yes,
At the winter tree, we had less than 50 AMIs to do.
yes.
We are 100%.
We are less than 5.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got a few tricky ones left. We're less than 5. We may be less than that after this week. I haven't talked to Mark, but you know, we're down under 5.
And with the spillway, we did the rock on the bridge, right? The columns.
Yes. No. On the top, we did not. We did everything down below. We didn't do anything on the top.
We were going to do some work on that rock work where the planters are.
Okay, we can get someone to take a look at that.
Pointing that out.
Yeah, we did not do that. We did everything on the below. We did not do anything on the rock work. So we'll see if Tyler's got someone that can do that kind of work. We've got some other areas of town, from the park steps and some other areas that his guys are looking at, trying to figure out what to do with some of this deteriorating border and rock work that we have around town. So yeah, we'll add that to our list. All right, debt update. Wanted to update everyone. As of tomorrow, there is a public notice going out for our July 8th council meeting. What that notice is going to say is a public hearing is going to take place on July 8th. What we're going to propose to you all is for initial steps, which is what we typically do. This is required by the LGC. Tasha and I last week met with the LGC virtually, had a chance to talk through this $2.25 million debt issuance. What it's for is the 2 pieces of property that we have already purchased, the Memorial Park project that is currently underway. And if you recall during the retreat conversation, those 2 pieces were going to be secured collaterally by the fire station. Our fire station has 1 payment left. We were going to refinance a portion of it If you do that, you have to make a significant capital update. What we talked about this past year was the fire station is in need of a roof. It's been about 14, 15 years, I guess, or so since the fire station was built. We're in need of a roof on the fire station. If we incorporate a new roof for the fire station, that's considered a significant capital update. So therefore, we can use the fire station as collateral. So this is what we are borrowing the money for. That's the amount that we are asking to borrow. So that is less than what we talked about at the retreat. If you recall, one thing that really changed at the LGC and the state treasurer's office was an election, and you've got a different approach now to what they're looking for when we show up and ask for debt. Essentially, they want it to be either shovel ready or shovels are already in the dirt moving. They don't want speculation. So for us to make that the number we had talked about, which is about 4.5 or 5 million, talk about upcoming paving, sidewalk repairs, etc., we would need to have bids in hand. We need to have a plan of when we're going to start that work, and we're not there yet. We just don't have that information. And we don't have the ability to do it until what we had talked about is probably this time next year or so. So we've pulled that piece out and just went with what we have here in front of us. 2 months ago, you passed a reimbursement resolution. Kudos to you all. That impressed the treasurer and LGC because apparently that's not going on everywhere. So thank you to Tasha again and our financial consultants for having that in front of you all to pass. That gives us the authority to move forward with reimbursing ourselves once we get the loan proceeds. So this is a whole lot of color, but this is a printout or an output of what we talked about at the retreat. So the purple, which was blue, but looks purple up here, is our existing debt service. This is the year we just passed, right at a little bit more than 1.8 million, if you recall. This was going to be purple for next year after the fire station in Buxton property rolls off, 1.2-ish million. Remember the big drop off. We've added in the orange is what we're talking about, the 2.25 million, along with we went ahead and put in what is based on our fleet schedule next year, the trash truck, etc. What this shows is a overall gradual increase here, amortization schedule of what it's going to cost us annually. So you can see if we were to buy all the fleet, we would be a little bit more than 1.6 million, still a couple $100,000 less than we were this year. That incorporates that debt. Again, what we do next month when we do the public hearing and what we do when we talk about our schedule here, the closing date, even with 9/16 and 25, we won't make our first payment until fiscal year 26, 27. That's why that shows it right there. That's just cost getting into it. That's our closing cost, etc. Our first payment will be due until the 26, 27 year.
Curiosity, what have we got big as far as fleet replacement in 29?
And again, I would say let's focus on the first year. A couple of these may include some big pieces like a trash truck or something that we may not need. When we put this in, we've populated it out with everything that we could possibly replace. This next year, we don't have anything too large. You can see it's a typical $100-some thousand probably annually. I'm not sure what's in that. I want to say it's a trash truck, maybe something else is included in that, but maybe focus on just the first year or two there and what that looks like with the big schedule. We do adjust that depending on where we are with our needs, etc. But you can see it fits within our debt portfolio pretty well there. It still allows us to have, well, at this point, without knowing what's coming up, it does allow us a couple $100,000 flexibility next year that we did not have this year because of debt roll-off within that. Our timeline is going to be pretty exact here because of the LGC's requirements. If the town council adopts a resolution and the public hearing takes place on July 8th, which we've put out, it'll be advertised tomorrow to take place on July 8th. If that all goes well and you adopt the resolution, that resolution says we now can move forward. You've given us permission to move forward. We will send out draft RFQs or RFPs to the banks on July 8th, and we give them until August the 5th to give those back to us. We're expecting around a 4% to 4.5% interest rate, maybe better, based on what we're hearing from our financial advisors. Again, much different than the typical market. Again, that's our credit rating, all the things we've talked about, budget needs. We would need to appear and talk to the LGC to make sure they're good with what the responses say on September 2nd, and then we would need to come back to you on September the 9th for you to approve the bids And then we are planning on closing about a week after, if all works as well. This has been presented to the LGC, all the details have been presented. We had a meeting last week, financials, all that stuff presented, they're okay with the schedule. This is the preferred schedule they have, so wanted to put that out just to let you know what's coming up and answer any questions you have on potential scheduling issues or this the debt itself. All good? All right, so we will advertise starting tomorrow for a public hearing to take place on July 8th, and then we'll bring that to you all at the July 8th meeting, and the public will have a chance to come and speak whether or not they're for or against us going out to bid for a $2.25 million home. Okay. Any questions so far? All right, getting into the agenda. That was the update piece. Any updates or anything I haven't answered or anything you have questions on so far? All right, first, Highway 321 safety. Was it just last week we had the meeting in here? Okay, my weeks and days get confused. So a week ago, yesterday, there was a meeting in this room with the DOT and Mr. Draney and Mr. Matheson and Chief Kirk and some representatives from the Department of Transportation talking about Highway 321 and some safety, primarily out at the Aho Road area, convenience site, etc. From that meeting, though, there was a conversation around safety within the town limits of the town of Little Rock, and primarily the number of accidents that have taken place at the Speedway. So I believe the majority, if not all of those, primarily have come from cars turning left from 321 into the Speedway gas station. It's beyond the median. If it's okay, I'm going to pull up an aerial of the area and give you some more insight. Nathan, would you like to speak maybe to some of the crash data that's taken place or what you've seen over the last number of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the data we collected for our meeting last week, I pulled from January of 2020 to May of 25. We had a total, when I pulled the stats, it was 80, but now we're up to 84 since today, as of today. We had one actually mid-morning today right there in front of Speedway again. So total of 84 crashes in between where the light is at Shopsville Parkway to back Hampton Road. I would say within our jurisdiction, it's been about 26 crashes right there in front of Speedway. And what Shane's getting ready to pull up here is you have a little median that goes from Shopsville Parkway like and runs down the center of 321. When we spoke with DOT about it, my request was that we would extend that further beyond the entrance to the sewer plant, further down.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but everybody I think knows there's a concrete median that goes from right here to about right there. Is where it ends. What's happening, obviously, and I think Nathan can just gave you the data. Since January, what year?
January 20.
Okay, so
And we had that fatality down there at the entrance.
over 24 accidents turning left in this area. So DOT, and this wasn't even our request, DOT brought up this is an area in which they wanted to approach us about. It's their road, however, it's our jurisdiction. Their request, and what we're asking today is for you to consider putting this on the agenda for July 8th. What they would need from us is a resolution okaying them to proceed with extending this median all the way down just past the wastewater plant entrance. The reason they want to go beyond the wastewater plant entrance here is to avoid folks turning left into there and make U-turns to come back around. But 26 accidents in the last 5 years is a big number, and it's a concern. It is our most frequented area in town by far for accidents in here. So again, just rehashing, in the midst of that meeting, DOT brought up this area. I would say they said for a number of months now, or in the past year or so, they've been worried about this area and curious about extending the median. What they would need from us is a resolution, essentially asking for them or allowing them to move forward. I think is how they stated that. So just wanted to pause here because this is something a little different than what we've done. But it is an area we do have concerns with.
So Nathan, sorry, how does that affect traffic from Moon? Because they'll have to, if they're coming from Moon, I know they'll go to the stoplight, make a U-turn, go back. if they're leaving Moon to come to Blowing Rock, where will the U-turn be
They'll have to turn right and go down to the light instead of turn
and
right.
come back?
Mhm.
And they're gonna have to cheat a little bit, maybe both sides to get that down through there. Cause I was looking at that, when you start going, it gets very thin by the time it gets to the speedway, and it's almost non-existent by the time it gets to the sewer plants.
Yeah.
Or they just go up here to, here in front of the water plant, the new 444 building, turn left, do you turn there? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want them to turn there, I'd rather them go on down, because we've had some pretty gnarly breaks from the entrance of Speedway all the way down to the line at Evanston. We had a guy lose his leg there, he actually worked for Hampton Towing now. A couple of overturns, I almost died right there, right north of Moon from a Suburban almost hitting me when I was out on a traffic crash. I left off one fatality, it was technically outside of our jurisdiction, but that gentleman ended up passing away as well, right past the sewer plant entrance. So what I would like to see, what I told the DOT is like, I wouldn't mind if you extend the median all the way to the median right there in front of where 444 is.
Well, That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to entertain that, but if they could extend the existing one out as far as we could go with it to at least past the sewer plant entrance, that would encourage people to go further down to the light at Edmonston and turn around right there.
The way they talked, I didn't think we could.
If we didn't extend it, could we extend the other median too? But it's a lot of time. I don't know, I'm just spitballing.
I can't remember, is there a turn lane at the Blue Ridge Parkway median coming towards Blowing Rock
Yes,
Yes.
to turn like where the,
right where 444 is.
yeah,
There is coming that direction. The other way, you have to go to Evanston.
yeah. So you would like to see that one done away with?
When I told them, the DOT, if in a perfect world, we could have that median from the Parkway Bridge come all the way to town, but that's a perfect world.
So most of the accidents are coming from people making U-turns?
Well, in this section that we're talking about,
Right here's the Speedway section.
yeah,
The
it's
Speedway.
in town, that's where we have the most accidents. It's people, they go past the light of shops on the Parkway and then they stop in the middle of 321 at the end of where the current median is to turn left into Speedway.
Okay.
And you got rear ends and,
Okay.
you know.
I don't think they
3, 4,
realize you can
5.
turn at the light to get to Speedway.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes, it's a concern, and it's a concern for DOT as well. Since we had other things on here, transportation related, we wanted to throw it on here just to let you know that we did have this meeting and the conversation around safety was brought up with regards to this area. And DOT has had this on their radar for quite some time, wanting to extend the median. Again, their primary focus is from about here just beyond the police department. We can definitely inquire and see what other options there are. This is the area in which they've seen, obviously, the same numbers we've seen, 26 or so accidents in the last 5 years. If everyone's okay with that, we'll have that conversation. Yes, Pete?
Shane, can you put up the graphic where the dump in Aho, that section there, want to mention that we did have discussion of, let's see if you can.
Yep. Hang on. Get down there. Yep. Here's the dump.
So anybody coming from Boone, when you come around that corner, that's most of the time, Dave, what would you say, going 50, 60 miles an hour?
Mhm.
And then up here, coming from Blowing Rock, coming around that curve, 50, 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So what Doug and I, when we had the conversation, we said, well, is it possible to get a flashing light up on that corner and then down on the bend coming in? And they seemed to say they would look at it and, you know, that might be a step, not gonna solve the problem totally, but at least it'll make people aware that coming into the dump, the nursery down there, and then the Aho, that's an area that really needs to be, protected. I know you had some comments during our meeting, so if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we talked about, and, part of the update that DOT gave us was also they're gonna be adding, this is on the south end of town, the S curves. They're gonna be adding rumble strips on each side of the road, widening the, caution stripes and things like that, and also putting rumble strips down to the middle of 321 to help for those foggy days and things like that. But up here, we discussed a couple of different things. I talked about the signage that we have currently up there right now. They said that they replaced the signage 2 years ago to make it a bigger sign. And then like what Pete was talking about, maybe adding some caution lights or some blinking lights up there just to draw some more attention to it. I think Doug recommended possibly if they could cut into the mountain right there to the right of Astor Cook Road, to just try to get some better visibility because it is, you know, that's a blind entrance right there coming around. And, you know, people speed through there all the time. And we also discussed about speed limits and things like that. On this end of town and at Speedway, right there where it turns back to 50 in front of Moon. So they're gonna look into a couple different things. I think they plan on doing a safety study themselves with the Highway Patrol, DOT, and that's gonna be conducted, September, I think is what they're looking at.
What are the criteria for a stoplight?
The numbers that they were throwing out, we fall under, because this road is competing with, you know, I-40. And I think what was the median that they said, 500?
500.
They threw out.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not coming to that, but this is, to me, a major safety issue up here in the high country. And they are aware of it, and they've been told for years, so they are trying to do what they can on their end.
CAP criteria is accidents, volume of cars, and deaths.
Well, we've got a stoplight, I'm just thinking about the stretch from Boone to Blowing Rock. We've got a stoplight at Tweedsy. And I know that that's for convenience for people to get in Tweedsy, because so many people are doing that. Then we have a stoplight at, Green Hill Road and the Rock. How did we get that? We'll get him on this. I know there have been deaths at Aho Road. How many deaths do there have to be?
I don't know, what is their criteria on deaths?
Well, I think the study, so anything, same with the stoplight down here, there's gotta be a study put into place first. So
Yeah.
it sounds like good news is there's a study coming here in the next couple
That's
of
good.
months. And we'll kind of see what comes of that, but that study will include the crash data and the fatalities and the things that are a part of that for them to assess that area.
Like he said, we're competing with a lot of areas across the state, and that was one of the reasons he mentioned, you know, we were talking, well, it almost was minor at some of the things that he would bring up in other areas across the state, that problems that they're having. He said he wouldn't even, the state wouldn't even consider a no left turn lane or no left turn sign, you know, because you come around there and people are stopped trying to cut over to go into the market. And, he said it also scared them down there, people, they don't like people backing out into a major highway. And that bothered them a lot too there at the market with the traffic backing out into a highway.
One final point, after we concluded the meeting, we asked the engineers to be sure that in anything they were working on, that they report back to Shane, so we together would have a complete update about what they were doing, and they were agreeable to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the positive news of all of this is they're aware of some of the same things we're aware of. They've got steps and processes they've got to go through. In the short term, we've got a study that's going to be coming, it sounds like, from that area. And to Chief Kirk's point, much needed upgrades on the S curves and the south end of town because of the fog that tends to hang around that area. can get pretty severe during certain times of the year. So upgraded markings and rumble strips and things of that nature. Our two areas in town by far that we have the most accidents are the S-curves and Speedway. That's probably 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. They're pretty equal number of accidents there that take place, unfortunately. So Speedway, they do have a plan for that area. They would just prefer you all to move before they move forward, just because it's our jurisdiction. It is their road. They can do it. They can more than welcome to go forward with it without asking us, but they would like for us to be okay with what you're planning on doing there. So I'll bring that to you all at the July 8th meeting with a formal resolution with more details of what they're looking to do there. In the meantime, I can make contact and see what they're willing to do beyond that area from a median standpoint.
Didn't they mention also in that area there, it'd be nice if we could extend the lighting on down further through those S-curves?
Yes. Yeah, the coach lighting, et cetera,
Right.
because of the fog. Other questions? Okay, moving along to loading zones, which we have talked about, and I can't recall that we've talked about them formally. So the reason this is on here is for a couple of reasons. One, the paving that's taking place on Main Street is going to eliminate some parking spaces. 14 is the latest number that I saw as of this morning. So we were up to, I think, 18 at one point, so we're down to 14, so that's better news. Why are we losing 14 parking spaces? Well, we cannot have any parking spaces that are within 20 feet of a crosswalk or 30 feet of a stop bar. And that's where the 14 parking spaces come in. So 14 parking spaces as of this morning, from what I saw as the DOT have laid out what their markings are going to be once the paving is complete. Which does bring up, as we're reimagining Main Street with 14 spaces being gone, do we want to take this time to put a loading zone or two within the town? We have one loading zone on Main Street, I guess that's official or unofficial. We have signage that says it at Laurel Lane, and it is used for that. I think that's the only one that I'm aware of on Main Street that has any signage that says loading zone.
There's one directly in front of Mel Lusher with sign saying loading.
Yeah, around the corner.
It's used.
I
parked there the other day.
I would echo the only official one we have is the one at Laurel Lane and the median Laurel Lane. So let me pull back up the map. A thought has been, and again, we can. This is summer retreat and formal conversations. So good time to bring this stuff up. If so, we've got some work to do. This area here is in front of the park. It looks a little blurry. Can everybody see that okay? Is that too blurry? It's warped. It is warped or something here. All right. If I go out a little bit, it gets less warped. Right. Okay. So we are. What's that?
Let's find us.
Yeah. I'll come back and So we are going to lose these two parking spaces as a part of the replanting of Main Street. On this end, we're going to lose this first one right here, and then on this side, we're going to lose 2. So this intersection, we're going to lose the most. I think we lose a total of 5 in this intersection. No, 6. 2, 1, 1, and 2 is what we lose. This intersection also is the most dangerous intersection we have for pedestrian safety. A thought, this is a thought for discussion purposes, is do we want to also eliminate these other 2 parking spaces and create a loading zone here? It is utilized right now by Kilman's in the morning, and then this area here is utilized by UPS and FedEx and anyone else wanting to get into this area. Just a thought for discussions. I know Mr. Matheson has brought this up a couple 100,000 times in the last 5 years, because we do not have a safe place for trucks to be able to access or park and access deliveries on Main Street. So this was a thought, was do we want to take the other 2 and hash off this entire area? Now I say that, we would have to start here and come down. There's going to be no parking in this one area. So we would go from here to this direction with a loading zone as a potential option.
What if it was time, like up till 11 o'clock or something like that, then revert to a couple spaces?
I think the issue with, if you're going to revert to spaces, it's going to be used for spaces. I mean, I think that's going to be, we talked about, not sure that is going to be upheld very well by people looking for parking spaces when it's busy here. It may still be used for parking spaces, and that's where our parking enforcement will come in to play within that. But this was the only or largest area that we could find on Main Street as a possibility because of the fact we're losing spaces. Everywhere else on Main Street, we're losing a parking space on either side of a crosswalk. We're not losing multiple ones in an area. So we're losing one here, one here, one here, one here. This one's the one we're losing the most in, which is 6 parking spaces being lost, with 2 on this side and 2 on this side over here. And then from that same discussion, it's also been discussed in the past, do we need one on Sunset somewhere? Do we need to try to develop a loading zone on Sunset for trucks because of the tightness of Sunset? Yes, sir.
Also, the good thing about those 2 spaces is the tractor and trailers are so wide. If you put a loading zone anywhere else down Main Street, they're still gonna be partially out into the highway. That area there, actually would probably get them completely out of the roadway.
Is it a negative that there are a lot of businesses on the opposite side of the street? Is it a negative that the truckers would have to cross the road with their
The only trucks that go there, 'cause I'm up and down this road all day, every day. So Killen's truck, they do a really good job. They come 7:30 in the morning when nobody's there. They either park there or they park in front of Killen's. They're done. The UPS truck does a really good job of finding out of the way spots. It's very in and out quick. The bigger problems are food trucks. In front of Town Tavern, delivered to Town Tavern, and up and down Sunset. So even though I think this is a good place for a loading zone, I think the only one that's really gonna use it, and they would only use it half the time, is Killen's and UPS. And UPS is usually an afternoon thing, it's not a morning thing.
And the good thing about Killen's, and has been, is that their truck comes early in the morning. There's usually nobody parked down through there anyway.
They're fantastic.
The food trucks,
And the linen truck,
Yeah, and the
linen truck, cause he was,
The UPS parks over there from 1888 now, so it's,
I mean, that's a good spot for
Yeah,
it.
it's being used for this now. I mean, to an extent, it's being used for this.
I don't see it getting used for anything on Sunset. I think there's a need for one on Sunset.
definitely is a big need for one there.
And then it's only, Sunset, I think, would just have to be all day. I think trying to get them to agree to come before 10 or whatever is impossible. So you did on Sunset, I think you did all day.
If we move forward with this, I hope that we're going to reach out to the merchants and get merchants' input too, because they're not very happy with the loss of parking as it stands now. So, just so that they're included and they have some input, probably be a good idea to hear from them.
I know luckily too, most of the time the food truck for 6 pence goes down the alley and delivers back there. You'll see them coming out a lot, up through there.
that's when they're on the bestseller and pill vendors, and the linen trucks getting those, going to the hotels down Sunset.
The largest need is probably the one down Sunset versus the one on Main Street. Town Tavern, that truck goes and delivers, behind. You know, about the only one who parks on Main Street for delivery is there for, Storage Street.
All right, so here, let's transition just for a moment to Sunset. So, Sunset crosswalk here. This is our street, so we are within the 20 feet here. This section is hashed off for no parking because of the proximity not only to the entrance and exit for the buses, but also the crosswalk. We utilize it for our temporary police car with traffic enforcement every now and then. But we do not have any other area on Sunset that is not labeled parking. So unless we know of another area, we would need to utilize parking spaces, take parking spaces.
How about that section right there behind that little four-wheel drive?
Well, this would be, I mean, outside of the buses,
Just for
which
loading.
from an entrance standpoint is not as important as an exit, I would say. We could utilize a parking space here and hash off, some of this area that's here now, along with maybe one parking space. I'm not sure if we need more than one. I don't know if we would need two here along with this area. Most of those trucks are box trucks, delivering things there. But again, loading zones have been brought up quite some time, and we put it on here to have this open discussion to see whether or not there's an appetite to do something on what we feel like are the two main streets that we see this problem in. Park is not as much. They usually utilize the market. They deliver to the market, so they're utilizing that hash space. And those are really the two main areas that we have issues with trucks delivering in a busy town, which is
I
Sunset.
agree with Pete in the respect of, I think we need to come up with a plan of where we put them, where we want to put them. And talk to merchants, because they're the ones impacted in both ways. Loading, unloading, and customers and parking.
But we anticipate striping to happen.
We anticipate striping to happen within the next couple of weeks on Main Street. So that area, the Main Street, Sunset's ours, it's already striped. Main Street is going to be striped in the next couple of weeks. They're going to stripe it based on their plan. We can always have them go back, or we can go back and redo it. However, there's going to be paint. that's down. Once they start paving, they will start striping right behind it. They could start striping within the next day or two of certain areas on Main Street. So our backs are somewhat against the law within that area unless we think we want to tell them to hold off in that area. We want to just continue with the
We can
plan.
always go back.
But I do like the idea of the one spade back toward the curve.
Be right here.
But, if you could get,
Okay.
what's going on, Gale, Bracken Garden, the only little push that you would have would be one going down Hill Base.
Well, he's going down.
But he's going down.
Come back in.
Come back in, yeah.
That's
Chief.
the three.
Let's look at
What do you
that
think?
right there.
Well, it's not blocking the entrance to the school for the buses. I'm good because the buses always exit on the other side.
Right.
We would need to start with a line about and go down. So these parking spaces, Kevin, are 18 feet?
Supposed to be 22.
22 feet, okay. So we probably have 40 plus feet in that area that we could designate, 40-ish feet, which I would think would take up most of the trucks, or allow for most of the trucks to be able to be in that area.
I think that's a good spot.
And then going, that's when we need to make sure that we let people, merchants and everything know that we do have a load zone. We need to notify their delivery trucks where they need to go. Because it would be easier now, because some of them are coming up Sunset and stopping. It'd be easier for them to come now through town and turn down.
Yeah, I think contacting merchants on Sunset's a much easier task than all of Main Street office. And then our timing on Main Street is difficult because of the fact that we are up against the wall, so to speak, with paving and marking coming in. We can have this conversation before we do anything. This is us. What we would need to do, though, I believe, is change the ordinance to allow for us to designate this as a loading zone. So we would still need to bring it back to you all to make that change. Thoughts on timing of that? We can do it relatively quickly. I mean, it's a simple ordinance amendment, so it wouldn't require a public hearing, I don't believe. Kevin, would it require?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, but we could do that on the
We'll be
8th.
live next one.
We can do it on the 8th, or we can wait. I'll do that. Are we?
Well, August is gonna be too late for our strike.
Now, he's talking about
Sunset.
Sunset.
Doing it.
I mean, I think we're saying we don't need a loading zone on Main Street, right? Are we saying that? That we don't
I would
need-
support a loading zone there and up on Main Street where you talk about.
In other words, in front of 1888 and.
Yeah, I think there's enough with, yeah, and some others to warrant that. I think making this decision at one time to need some air makes more sense.
Make a decision nonetheless on Main Street ASAP.
Right, I mean, they're going to either mark those two spaces as two parking spaces, or if we tell them otherwise, they need to know relatively quickly, what to do here. We tell them to do nothing, and then we come back in and mark. That's an option as well, to give ourselves a bit of time.
The loading and unloading zones, if there's not a delivery truck in them, is that something that tourists can pull in to unload vehicles until they can go find a parking spot also?
It's a slippery slope. If they're actually there
Just
actively
asking this.
unloading, like what Jack does with his truck unloading happens right there, I mean, I get it,
Well,
but
I
then
mean,
also Jack's
instead
there
of
for
stopping
6
in the
hours.
middle of the
Mhm.
street, can they pull into the loading
Dirt
zone and let
buses and
people
something
out
like that.
and then pull back into the traffic to find a parking spot?
And I do want to point that out, that would be taking a handicap space from Main Street at that location.
How do you ticket somebody parking in the loading zone? Is that $20 or is that?
I have to look back, we've changed it now, I have to look back at the fees.
I think it goes up to 50 on that one per call. We've got a shuttle discussion too, so maybe we can put a pin in this one for just a moment. We got two more on this parking transportation, because if we were to go, it's not still funded on shuttles, but where does the shuttle stop as well? So let's just pause it for a minute, is that okay? And then we'll reverse back in just a few seconds. Or we can go ahead and skip to the shuttle now, if we want to, and have that discussion, because if we were to ever get to a shuttle stop is going to be something we need. Where is that shuttle stop? Maybe a shuttle stop and a loading zone are two of the same things. I mean, maybe if, I don't know. I don't know if we need additional stops there.
Well, I got a little confused when David was saying that he sees things working okay on Main Street right now.
No, I think all I was trying to say was, I think the problem is more acute on Sunset than it is on Main Street.
Yeah, but on Main Street, you got Kilman's, and they come early, and you got UPS, and he's okay at 1888 for as long as he needs to be there. So Sixpence and Story Street would be the other two
Really,
restaurants that need food.
Town Tavern.
But Town Tavern, they park behind, so, well, I mean, that's what you're saying. Huh?
Not this week,
Oh,
but I think I wasn't trying to say that I think Main Street doesn't need one, because I think it does.
And if you tie what you're talking about in, that could easily be utilized as a shuttle stop at the same time.
There is, on Main Street, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, there's obviously options on Main Street. Let's go back up there to hit real quick and hop into the street here. Oh, look at that. Didn't know that was even gonna be there.
That's even better.
Oops. Let's go back up to this side.
We should put the first one driving out.
It looks like ice.
The back.
All right, so we are going to lose this space and this space. We're going to be able to keep this space and this space. So we're losing these two and we're keeping these two as of right now. Obviously, delivery trucks seem to be utilizing that area for parking now. So thoughts? Any additional thoughts on this area?
So we're gonna lose We know we're gonna lose 2 of the 5, or 3 of the 5.
4. Yeah, that first one's not a space. You have this red car, so there's 4 there, right?
There's one beside, isn't that a space?
This is not a space. It gets utilized for a space, but it's not technically supposed to be a space.
It's not technically.
So when we lose these, we're not doing a curb bump out, or,
We had not planned on, no.
because we can come back later if we want. Or landscape.
Bring it on.
Good. Let's jump to the shuttle stuff then.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me, if it's fine with you all. We're jumping over to the next step is parking. Let's come back to that, and that's our last piece of this parking shuttle transportation piece. Roger Brooks really emphasized during his study the need for a shuttle system within the town, along with additional parking and a number of things, recommendations. We started the conversation about a shuttle well before Roger Brooks when we had the Out Park here. So Out Park was coming over on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, or just Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. Friday evenings, Saturdays during the day, and Sundays during the day. And that was a contract that we had, thanks to Mr. Matheson, for a few years with Out Park. And we decided to stop it really after COVID and some of the changes that had taken place. Roger came in and did a study, said you need 600 spaces, you need a shuttle system, you need a lot of things, big price tags. And we kind of didn't go back to the shuttle conversation. So we're bringing it back up. A couple of you have brought this up as a topic. I'm going to turn it over in just a few moments. It's okay with Ms. Perry, who has put together some thoughts that she would like to share on the shuttle. That's okay. And she has sent me a PowerPoint that she would like me to share. So. Let me find it. You go. Clicker. Clicker.
Okay, so we know that parking is an issue and a big challenge. And I'm a solution seeker, so in thinking of ways that we can help without going to pay parking at this time, I started looking into shuttle service. Shuttle services enhance visitor mobility and convenience. These services reduce the need for parking spaces and reduce traffic congestion. What are the benefits for a tourist town that has parking challenges? It reduces parking congestion. It minimizes individual vehicles downtown. It reduces the number of individual cars that need parking spaces. And by minimizing the number of cars, shuttles help maximize the efficient use of existing parking resources. Number 2, it enhances the visitor's experience. It provides convenience and ease of access. It reduces stress and improves enjoyment. Visitors can enjoy a more relaxing trip without the stress of navigating traffic and finding parking. It increases accessibility. Shuttles can facilitate easy access to downtown. Number 3, traffic management and improved logistics. Streamlined traffic flow by reducing the number of vehicles trying to find parking spaces. And simplified movement within a larger area eases transportation logistics. 4, positive impact on the town's image. It creates a positive impression by offering convenient and efficient transportation, projecting a more favorable impression of the town as a tourist destination. Evidence from research has shown that shuttles can be successful if, first and foremost, Visitors must know about it. The town advertises and markets the service, for example, TDA marketing, ads in publications, and the town's website. Secondly, the process is made easy for passengers. So it has to be marketed, they have to know about it, and it has to be easy for them. What is needed for a shuttle service to be successful? Again, advertise, market, and promote. Mark the stop and pickup locations on the street clearly to identify them easily. Give an information sheet to each passenger with the shuttle locations marked and times of operation. So, for instance, as people get onto the shuttle bus or leave, they would be given an information sheet that would say, these are the times that you should be at a stop if you want to get back to your car. You have a regular schedule so passengers know when they can catch the shuttle. And for example, you might run the shuttle from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and that would also be an accessibility option for employees downtown. Perceived negatives and or challenges. Number one, cost of implementation and operation. Controlling the cost is key. And my proposal would be that we would put things in motion for next 2026 high season and keep an open mind, experiment, and tweak it if need be. The cost of vehicles. There are many used passenger vans that are good value and are at acceptable price points. My research gave a wide range of $15,000 to $25,000 for fairly low mileage vehicles. Cost of staff. People who can drive are not difficult to find. Maybe we could do 4-hour shifts, but this would be up for discussion. Cost of infrastructure primarily would be for signage for the shuttle stops. Number two, potential for delays and scheduling issues. Shuttle routes with multiple stops can be slower than private transportation, but not if parking is limited and people have to drive around town for 20 minutes or longer to find a parking space. Maintaining a consistent schedule is imperative, though it can be challenging. 2 shuttles are recommended. Number 3, dependence on ridership. If ridership is low, the service may not be sustainable, and it can be difficult to predict demand. My suggestion is we use a survey to poll visitors downtown for, let's just say, 5 days. Could give us some indication of whether there is interest. We can also have a survey online. And we would ask questions on the survey such as, did you drive to town today? Did you find it easy or difficult to find a parking space? How long did it take you to find a parking space? If there were an option that involved a shuttle, for your convenience, would you be open to it? More than likely, we would not have the shuttle active during the off-season months. For example, November through April, no shuttle. Or February through April, no shuttle. Up for discussion. Number 4, competition with other transportation options. This is something that you find in other towns. However, there are no taxis or ride-sharing services in Blue and Rock to speak of that would pose competition for the shuttle. Number 5, infrastructure requirements. Pick up and drop off locations with signs, and drivers. Do it the right way. Advertise the service, sell the positives, have 2 shuttle vans running in 15-minute increments, and have established pickup and drop-off points that are marked and identified. And now I've just included just a precursory search that I did, and some that are, you can find these any day. On GovDeals, there was a 2023 Ford Transit 350 13-passenger van for a little over $15,000. That's a good looking one. That particular one was in Charlotte, 65,000 miles, almost 66. It only had 6 seats. And I think it was about $20,000. This one, handicap accessible, 2022. And then I have just some ideas for stops. Maybe one around Meadowbrook Inn, one up close to Maple Street, maybe one close to Morris, one over Town Tavern, and maybe one on Sunset. I'm not a logistics person, so I couldn't really say like the route, but these are just some examples. Upfront and ongoing costs. Purchase of 2 shuttle vans, signs, advertising, gas and maintenance, and drivers. And this is just an example. If you paid $17 an hour, and you ran a shuttle for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week in high season, it would be $28,560 to pay a driver, and then times 2 would be 57.
It's 2 drivers. 2 drivers.
2 drivers, at 57,000.
That's 7,000.
2 shuttles.
2 shuttles.
I'm not talking about the drivers, just the time. So you could have 3 drivers in 10 hours, but the time would be 10 hours a day. And I'll take questions. And reliable shuttle transportation services can be an essential part of a vibrant tourism industry. The quick and efficient movement of tourists between locations makes shuttle services the best way to explore what Blowing Rock has to offer. This service could help ensure that visitors get to where they need to go safely and stress-free. And I know one question is, where would the cars park to get onto the shuttles? And all of this is to be discussed. I don't know, if Shops on the Parkway is a good spot, Buxton lot beside the fire station may be a good spot, just different things. Yes, Charlie?
If you would, when Doug was spearheading this with Apple Cart, they didn't go to Devant Field, which is a great place to pick up people. They didn't go into Chatola. They were picking up people and taking them from one end of Main Street to the other. And we got to get them to town. And that's where I think maybe benefit is by picking up, like you said, satellite locations. Get them into town. Like the Barton Park does. They just stop one place. And then you're able to utilize those outlying parking areas, which are not being utilized now for employees and et cetera. So on your map, I would I'd pull some of the shorter stops in town and go to outlying locations. Another question.
I
How
think
we
that-
pay, how we pay for it? Thoughts?
Well, let's see, we could have a bake sale. Okay.
Okay, I'll make the bun cake.
I can get brownies.
Bun cake.
I don't know, that's beyond where, that's my presentation.
Well, now, that's something that TDA is tourism driven, some, you know,
That's who we had pay for the alcohol, the TDA paid for it the years that we did.
How much was Apple Park?
Yeah,
they were high.
and people just didn't, we heard, nobody knew what Apple Park was. It didn't really,
The truck was
We were told-
produce truck or something.
yeah, and we were told if this, a new, different sales system was put in, you gotta really get the public to buy into it, and you gotta get the businesses to buy into it, to let people know that there is a shuttle service out there. The signage, like I said, wasn't that great. I didn't know that, it even was suggested if you're gonna do a major stop on Main Street, that you have just a little covered area or something that, people could identify, this is the bus stop, you walk there, you're at that's just some things that was brought up to us of, changes that Apple Cart just didn't do. And Apple Cart, it was also, their hours was dependent upon ASU, and if ASU had volume going on, or if ASU had some event and needed that, to pull them away from us. So that hurt not having the guaranteed hours and later hours. If you're gonna do it, most of your business is more the evening when people are coming in to town, that they want to stop and go out and not have to drive anywhere to the restaurant, stay parked at your motel. But the biggest thing that they talked about was the signage needs to be identified. If we did anything, like I said, on Main Street, it would be nice if we thought about some type of a covered area.
Let me ask you guys something. I don't know if did you talk to the Robbins lady?
I decided not to, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
My understanding is that she wants to use golf carts. Well,
It's 8 passenger units.
I didn't talk to her
Okay.
because I think that the town needs to run this and not contract with someone else. She was talking about our insurance being really high.
You're about $2,000 to $3,000 per vehicle.
Well, the town, I think, talking to Shane, they have a good deal through the league with,
That's not for a shuttle service though. You fall under a different category when you start running bus service.
but there's a lot that has to be discussed.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, insurance,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's why we're not gonna get this set for this summer.
So you don't like
We
the
got
idea,
lots of time.
you don't like the idea of privatizing?
I don't care if it's done right. It
Right.
has to be done right.
That's
We have to be, and you learned a lot through the Apple Cart situation. Have to be set stops that are clearly marked, and people get a map with this, and certain things have to be done. Now, if a private company can do that, that's great.
I'm not just throwing it out there
Yeah.
because we are losing parking spaces.
And
We aren't utilizing our satellite parking areas, one of which is the Van Field and the pool.
so I went to a session at the City Vision in Greenville. Gastonia has gone from, they switched out, they're not doing city buses anymore, they're doing almost sort of like a shuttle Uber service, and there are companies out there that do that. And I checked with the one that Gastonia, but these are very expensive. And I feel like if we are just trying this for one summer, I mean, we want to do it right, but we don't want to have a large investment in it.
Now, another thing that we talked about on the health part that they couldn't do, that we had wanted, was like doing a, thing with Tracy Brown, talking about, some of the interest in Blowing Rock. Like the rock itself, you know.
Advertising.
Yeah, just letting them know if the tape that plays continuously on the bus, that lets you know what some of the places are in Blowing Rock. We thought that would be good, because when you're sitting there and you hear something like The Rock or, you know, South Mark, Kill Winds, you know, you're already learning a lot about them while you're on your ride in.
And these advertisers are paid.
I was gonna say, how do you decide who gets to be on the tape though?
Do what?
How do you decide who gets to be on the
You
tape?
sell the space, it's advertising.
Yeah, do you, other than Gastonia, did you run across in your research a town that's doing something similar to what you're proposing?
Not in North Carolina. None of the tourist towns seem to be, but there are some in Colorado, and New England.
Yeah, I've run into Colorado, I think maybe also in Yosemite, some border towns that
Yes.
ferry people in because they don't have any parking in the park. That works well. The whole shuttle thing seems like it needs to be part of a larger decision tree in terms of holistic parking decks, where parking goes, and do we need a shuttle? Does not preclude us with a small investment trying to want something too. You know, and really putting, like you said, putting an emphasis on signage and education. Because that was kind of the downfall that I kept hearing about. Albuquerque was like, well, I don't know where this is going, it just says shuttle. I don't know where they're gonna dump me off at, how I get on or how it works.
Ken, I'd like to compliment you on all the research and putting this report together. A lot of time went into it. I think the bottom line is that it's always, how do you get people to get out of their car? They have a love affair with the car, and first instinct is, car, where am I gonna park? And to all your points, if that can overcome that or mitigate some of that, then maybe it's doable.
And keeping that in mind, our wayfinding signage that's coming out is going to be noting parking areas, okay? Which we don't have now. So people don't know where to park. So, what do we not have? Tells you where you can park without getting a ticket every 3 hours.
Did,
We have more good signs now.
Meredith, did you cover?
You can't see them.
shuttles in your-
No, you can't. Yeah, talk to Kevin.
No, the shuttle really didn't go beyond Roger's study. You know, he went real in depth with it, if you recall, on the shuttle. He talked about wrapping the inside of the shuttle with advertisements and the, pieces that had been done. I think he used Gatlinburg as his example, which I know is a taboo thing to say around here, but we aren't Gatlinburg and won't be, Gatlinburg. But he utilized, I think, their system with the stops and the well-lit shelters and the no more than 15 minutes ever waiting. He used a lot of those same things that, Kat's bringing back up some of the questions y'all are asking within that. And the fact that whether the town does it or somebody else does it, it has to be extremely consistent. It has to provide easy access wherever you're picking them up at, dropping them off. All the same things I think we're talking about here. at a cost. I mean, there's a cost attributed to it. So he suggested the TDA and advertisements and the town, I think, kind of a partnership coming together, assisting to pay for something like that. He was using trolleys, I believe, was his example, so something unique to the town. But to Mr. Harwood's point, a lot of this, outside of 321, the loading zones, but the next steps of parking and the shuttle discussion are all, I think, intertwined. They're all the same discussion somewhat of what are we doing next? We just passed the ordinances changes on the enforcement. It's well underway. I don't know how many tickets we're writing. I haven't asked Chief Kirk or Cassandra, but you've seen our folks out there writing tickets and utilizing our current, technology. I think we've got a meeting tomorrow with a new company and getting that rolled out, which is good and exciting. But whether it's a shuttle or whether it's parking or enforcement, it's all the same conversation we've had for a long time. We just got to figure out what's our next steps, what's that look like, holistic, separate, etc. So
in other words, the loading zones, we need those now, and those can be utilized later. Once more research is done on the shuttle.
Yes, potentially.
potentially, yeah. I mean, right. I mean, it's not being utilized for so that's why I brought that a few moments ago. I don't know if the two have anything to do with each other or not. They could. I mean, where we're talking.
Indirectly.
Yeah. We can tell DOT to not do anything right now, or we can have them just move forward with their plan. Whatever we choose on a loading zone. Sunset's ours. We can do it tomorrow. We can get public works out there and hash it off and do it. Not really. I think technically we're supposed to go through you all and do the ordinance change. That's what I was looking at Kevin for. Because it is an ordinance. We'd want to make sure that we did that. July 8th. We're not in it's only 2 weeks away, give or take, right? No, exactly 2 weeks away. So we can do that on July 8th. We're going to go that route. I'm hearing that may be something we want to suggest for that
David,
conversation.
You said that you'd like to see both of them while we're doing
I
it.
think there's a need, yeah.
Sunset and
Amen.
I can get with the chamber and see if we can't put something together relatively quickly with discussions on businesses, et cetera, for the July 8th meeting. And it doesn't mean we have to do something July 8th, it just means we can bring it back up if that's satisfactory to everybody on the loading zones.
The only other box I'd like to check on loading is with chief, like in terms of, safety issues. Have we had any accidents, close call, anything related to these trucks parking in the middle of the road and unloading? Loading?
Nothing as of now.
Nothing other than a lot of work flying out of
Nothing
few cars,
that
yeah.
I can regulate it. You have, the biggest concern that I see is the ones on Sunset. I had to go around one yesterday, so, and that one parked right smack dab, didn't try to get out of the way, parked right there in the middle of the road, so. And you're looking at traffic backing up both ways, who's going around who, and stuff like that.
Whose turn is it?
Exactly. I think Linda said she volunteered the front right there in front of her.
We'll show you if you give that to One thing that comes with the loading zone, for instance, on July 8th, we vote to make Sunset. Here is the ordinance 628. We would need to designate what areas is loading zone.
On that, Shane, there is no section that talks about in that appendix.
Oh, there isn't? Okay.
Not one, I was gonna point that out.
Just refers to independence.
The first thing, and even that number's taken on something else, so I think you could just do it, and you come back later and just add it to the code. And if it needs an ordinance amendment, I think you designate it as you see fit.
It is our street, that's what it states. We need to designate our loading zones if we choose to do so. But we would need to make sure the businesses, especially on Sunset, understand that has to be utilized. If that area is there, it can't continue to be, Sunset as a street can't continue to be utilized as a loading zone. So
once you tell the truckers 2 or 3 times, the police department tells them 2 or 3 times, and that's where we need to load and unload, they will.
We have written tickets for that before.
I think it's $25.
We've written state citations for it, impeding the flow of traffic. Our biggest problem, think about what Dave asked, was up there, it was the truck from Middle Metro. They were stopping on 221. Nobody could see the light turning, so we brought that guy twice, I think.
Yeah, I guess that would be, just because we bill it doesn't mean they come, right? So, from your perspective, do you think these are gonna get utilized?
I think the biggest thing, or the route I would take about it, is contacting Google Maps. I've done that before in the past because these truckers were being routed up Sunset, turning right on Ransom, and then making that sharp hairpin turn to go back on Main Street. Why Google Maps had it like that was when they were working on the bypass and it was never changed. So I contacted them before about that. That worked for some. Other ones are still doing it because they haven't updated their GPS in their truck. So,
I guess I was
but I think
more
there's,
referring to our regulars, our
Yeah.
main guy and our
I think that would be the responsibility of the
chain
business
foods and.
to contact them.
That's the two main ones I see.
I would recommend from the loading zone discussion, even though we don't necessarily have to, I think we would put this on the agenda and have a public discussion, at least on a Tuesday night. I don't think we have a lot of people, watching, or potentially knowing that we're gonna make changes like this. I think it's significant enough, even on Sunset, that I don't think it's gonna be harmful for anyone to wait 14 days to talk about this, if that's something you all are agreeable to.
I'd like us to lean on our chamber too for some input.
All right, so we can put that as a to-do list to get the chamber and have that discussion. See what feedback and input we can gather for the July meeting, if that's satisfactory to everyone. We have a relatively light agenda as of right now, no planning and zoning items on there. We have the historical folks. So that will allow us to put this on there along with the Highway 321 piece, so we'll do a transportation segment and the debt resolution.
But I will ask the chief this, would you rather see him in the road or in the load zone?
I'd rather see them at load zone.
That's all I want to hear.
As for shuttle, yes, go ahead, sorry, okay.
No, you go first.
No, go ahead.
No, you-
I was gonna bring back up the fights. Yeah, I was gonna ask for thoughts and next steps, et cetera.
Yes. I was just gonna say, maybe next step could be, some sort of survey. And I don't mind hanging out on Main Street and accosting tourists, but,
You're gonna hang out, right?
Ron said the
Okay,
same.
we'll take up a collection for you.
But no, I mean, to try to get some feel for, is there any interest at all? Because that one point is ridership. We have to have the ridership, like you said, Pete. And people love their cars, but if they feel pain enough, they'll change. And so we're losing parking spaces. They're gonna feel some more pain.
Have you walked up from the airfield? Uptown,
Yeah, fine.
walk back down's a lot easier.
The pool, this time of year, the pool parking lot is packed.
That's true.
I mean, like, there's nowhere to park between the pool and people visiting the park. There's not very many parking spaces. I mean, there's really not a ton of parking spaces down there at all. I feel like if you're gonna run a shuttle, you need to run a shuttle from like Holiday Inn, Chatola, let them stay parked at the hotels and bring them into downtown so that they're not taking up spaces for your day trippers or other people. I think that's where you should start.
Four-story parking garage at the pool.
So that's where, if, one of the things on that,
There's that.
if you run two, and see, that's what we did with the Apple Cart, is the motels is what we're trying to hit, but luckily, if you run two, you could almost divide Ransom or Sunset as your dividing point, one working one half and one working the other, which allows you to stay within the 15-minute, but also pick up a couple more places.
Yeah.
See, we were limited at how many places when we did the route that we could stop at and still keep it with under,
5 or something.
keep it under 15 minutes, but
Shane,
still a lot
We're
there.
gonna have to do something. We're losing parking spaces. We don't have to. The quickest short resolution is some type of shuttle from the hotels, right?
whatever happened with parking committee, as, I know we kind of got to what we had set our goals for. However, I believe those goals have been accomplished and there needs to be new goals set. Has that committee been done away with? Does it need a new committee? I think, curious where that stands.
Yeah, I think to rehash 3-ish years ago, after Roger Brooks, one of the suggestions was to develop a parking committee and had members of town staff, town council, TDA, chamber, businesses, residents, and I'm probably missing a group or two somewhere in that. But a pretty large committee was formed, and I can't remember how many meetings we had. A lot. We met down at American Legion. Once we had the town hall meeting on paid parking, it kind of stopped everything at that point, and we never met. And, you know, if you remember that meeting, it got a little emotional, and we just kind of pulled back a tad bit. So now that we're where we are with enforcement and looking at what's our next steps, whether it's the shuttle or whether it's a combination of the shuttle and parking or more parking, et cetera, all the things we talked about. It may be worth dusting that off, revamping it. It was a larger group, we probably want to make it a little smaller, and discussing what these next steps are. So, I can't remember which council member emailed about this topic. It may have been David, or maybe Melissa, but someone was asking next steps with parking. So, thoughts on next steps, and if that's kind of.
Would be so heavy.
Yeah, Mr. Arwood, if that's kind of what you were thinking, of do we need to put together next steps and what that looks like with regards to parking?
You asking me?
Yes.
Well, I guess, you know, where I was with it is looking more at, you know, the 50,000 foot mark. We talk about enforcement, we talk about shuttles. I feel like all of that's important, but I think taking a step back and looking, reapproaching, not rehashing, but refocusing,
Reassessing.
Kind of what a longer term strategy is, if that's 3, 5, 10 years, whatever that is. I had not thought about the parking committee. That might be a good place to start. I think it needs to be structured, not just throwing us in a room and throwing out ideas. But I do think that over the last couple of years, we've obtained some land that could be suitable for parking. We've gotten serious about enforcement and technology that goes along with that. We have a good handle on what paid parking potentially could look like. So I think now's the time to address the absence of parking, the lack of parking, you know, whether that's 100 spaces or 1,200 spaces, whatever that is that we need. And I've heard everything between that. So in terms of next steps, I don't know. I'm kind of throw it out there for discussion. I think the parking committee is certainly one that we could do. You have to be really careful with that in terms of who's on that committee and what factors are represented on that committee. I think that we could schedule another work group among ourselves. So I don't know, but I do think that we need more strategy than we have.
I think to the point, we really pushed pause after paid parking, and in my opinion, we did for a moment, and then we kind of revamped it all back up again. Enforcement and that piece versus just jumping into what we were kind of heading towards, which was paid parking. So we haven't really readdressed those pieces of the paid parking, additional parking. Again, not parking on Dr. Brooks, but a lot of these things was what he came up with. We need additional parking. We need a trolley. We need enforcement. We need paid parking. We need all of these things is what he was suggesting. So we kind of used that to start that parking use his recommendations to create some recommendations. And then we've not really followed through with those recommendations, in some ways. And rightly so, I don't think we were ready, I think we were jumping the gun in a couple areas. Professionally, I think we were. Now we've pushed pause for a couple years, we're doing enforcement, technology, et cetera, so perhaps the next step is a committee, or next step is a work session, or whatever that looks like, looking at parking.
It's like we have a list of all these things we want, and we need to sit down and figure out how they interconnect and work and get a game plan so they all fit together. So we're not doing this piece, doing that piece, it all needs to flow together at one time. I think that's the component that we're missing.
And looking at where do we want our next parking to be, additional parking to be, you know?
And-
When they decide that, like, do we want it down there next to the fire department? Do we want a deck or something down
But
there?
again, I think that's one component of a big
Right,
picture.
but I mean, that needs to be added in.
Yeah.
All this needs to be, when you, on the next steps, is added into the process of trying to figure out where we're going and where we're heading with this.
Almost feels like, I love someone else to reply to this, but it almost feels like that's the bottleneck. That we gotta figure out where that parking is going before we know whether we need a trolley. You know, and, everything else, it seems to me, we need to identify that and then follow that through to a particular, you know, whatever that is. Or, in the absence of that, working out a, strategic alliance with someone that does have parking. Be that shops or churches or whatever that is. You know, I think identifying where the parking is or where it could be, and then moving toward that.
And Meredith had that as part of her presentation. And, you know, nothing against Mr. Brooks, but I feel like that his focus is tourism. Her focus, Meredith's focus, is parking. And that is what she knows inside and out. And I felt like that she was saying, or maybe not, I felt like I'm remembering that she was saying we don't need to necessarily decide right now that we need paid parking. We need to enforce what we have, and that she was looking at some lots to direct employees for the employees to park in, and maybe use churches parking, and we could go back to some of the things that she was suggesting. I don't personally think that, I mean, we just started enforcing, and is that gonna impact? Now, the problem is that we're losing spaces. And so that is gonna be combined with enforcing. Don't really know if it's gonna water down the success of our enforcing.
You know, originally, when we were looking at parking, paid parking, we were talking to the churches. We had discussions with the churches, some of which were amenable to possibly working with the town. So a lot of that research is done. We also looked at the van field, we looked at where the pool is, we looked at different areas. I agree with David, we need to find out where our accessible parking areas are.
Well, I think we have that. Let's put the lost parking in context. It's probably 3, 4, 5% of our total parking inventory. So it's something, but it's not tremendous. I don't really feel compelled by the lost parking to do something else. But I do think that exploring, to me, it seems the first step is identifying where parking can go, where parking exists, and can we better utilize the existing parking, churches, shops? And if that doesn't, that's cheap, that's not a $8 million parking debt, right? If that doesn't go anywhere, then we start looking at where we can put parking. But I don't think, in terms of, I guess you can still work on a shuttle and contemporaneous with that. But that seems like the first step to me, and I don't know that we need a committee for that.
I don't think so.
I think, I know that, Aaron did a lot of that, for us in terms of, and Meredith has done a lot of that, so I think maybe I'm throwing that out there. That seems like an obvious first step to me.
Well, I think, tagging on to what you're saying there, out of both Warren or Brooks came that we need more direction to utilize the parking that we have, because they said most of the time we can handle all the parking that we have. It's just that people didn't know where to go to and it wasn't utilized. We only, a couple of times opened up or used, next to the fire department, we had a few there, but, like you had mentioned, signage and let people know where the parking is.
See, as I'm just sitting here kind of rolling around my head, I think we could start working on available parking and how to better utilize that. And, maybe that's a income source for churches. I don't know. The other thing I can see is shuttle just running between shops in downtown. They've got so much parking. Maybe there's a strategic alliance there that could be useful and start to transcend any potential redevelopment that they do. If I was the shops, getting people there, getting people back and forth, that's an obvious big parking lot that,
And they were always, when we did the Alcott very amenable to, having two stops down there and the parking, anything that's.
I don't know, we need, starting off 5, 6 different stops.
Yeah.
One downtown. I'm just spitballing. But I would say, if we're working on a strategy here in next steps, I think identifying what we already have and how to utilize it better. And then at the same time, working on how can we turn over our current home street spaces more, and a strategy for pushing long-term parking to our decks.
Yeah, we're getting ready to utilize the shops for the festivity. We run a shuttle from the shops to here. That's where we go. And so it's utilized. It's usually, I know that's a parade and that's the 4th, but it's full. There's 2 or 3 trips in a row around the times they drop them off, pick them up, they're full. The rest of the day it stays.
It's gonna run from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturday, on the 5th.
From the shops to here to the shops.
Airhaven is running a shuttle. And we'll do it also for, Christmas in the park, lighting in the town. They'll run one, probably that starting Friday afternoon-ish. November's a little different because it depends on the weather, how quickly they come into town, or if they wait till right before the lighting, but they'll run a shuttle on Friday, and then we'll do one on Saturday too as well. And when we first started it, it was a little slow, but people now know, and it is constant. And he literally runs from shops to right here at the PD and turns around, and that's all he does all day long.
A lot of people now too, I've noticed, are learning that if they utilize the shuttle there on parade day, they can get gone fast. else, because
Much
we
more.
keep the streets shut down until we can get everything cleared out and safe before we open anything back up, so. If you want to get here and get out, park at Shops on the Parkway and take it.
Okay, it sounds like bottom line is we need to look at our existing areas for parking and how to better utilize those. Correct? And should we,
It may be start looking at a shuttle, maybe on a limited basis.
Friday, Saturday, Sundays?
Well, I meant limited in terms of stops.
Jennifer's made a good point. They come from Shops in the Parkway, downtown and back. And I watch those things, they're loaded. And if we can, part of our parking is addressing Shops in the Parkway.
And then our efforts to move long-term to the decks.
Take a quick break, 10 minutes.
docket. So from the first segment, we've got a couple things coming back July 8th. One is the debt resolution, and the second one right now is loading zones with shuttle and parking work to be done. We gotta get a little more thought on that. Two pieces of the first four, so to speak, coming back. Something that's been brought up again a number of times, really prior to COVID and then after COVID, we started talking a little bit more about this, was potential food trucks. We currently do not allow food trucks in town outside of special events, special occasions. We do at the town on the 4th of July and our Christmas holidays, we allow food trucks to come to the parking lot here because of the sheer number of people that we have in town. But food trucks have come up in the recent months. Last year, especially during some of our busy times, it was something that was brought to our attention that maybe we want to reconsider or have a discussion on food trucks. So again, this is kind of an open-ended discussion. Outside of special events, outside of special occasion type things, special permits, et cetera, we don't currently allow food trucks within the town of Royal Rock. Other places have done things, for instance, where they allow them in certain areas or certain times of the week or certain times of the day. So Lenore, for instance, and Kevin can maybe elaborate a little bit more on this, allows them within a certain section of downtown, within a certain section time of the day, to increase food options. Theirs is lunchtime through, I believe, early afternoon for workers and for individuals to be able to provide options for food. So there's a multitude of different things that we have found, and we've discussed over the number of years now, the different options, from what we are now to full-fledged allowance, or we want to try to control it, whether that's a temporary type of allowance for it with these parameters, et cetera. So I can't remember, because I'm getting older and retired, which one of you even brought this up, but I think multiple ones brought it up. Yeah, this side of the road. So I will let you all share some thoughts on food trucks if I haven't done a good enough job so far. So.
I've always been a brick and mortar backer, and I still am. But I've had quite a few people come to me and have asked that with the shortage of restaurants that we have in Royal Rock, and the wait times that we have at a lot of them, that would we consider allowing food trucks? And I thought about it because, like I said, I've always been, the more vested to me is the brick and mortar. I started thinking, we are short of restaurants, and the wait times, I know when we try to call and get something or go, it is pretty long, your popular places. I'd mentioned to some of you and to Shane that for me, if it was done, I would like to do it Thursday through Saturday, June through October. I don't, that way, and only do a couple, that way your restaurants still have their business the rest of the winter. It helps alleviate the heavy times from June through October that we have, and it helps alleviate the times that's the hardest to get, and that's the weekend times, the Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. But it was just something that was brought to me just to throw out as a consideration, just to talk. And I said I will bring it up at the summer retreat, just to throw it out there and get other people's feelings.
Well, there's no doubt that there's a restaurant deficit. I mean, we all go out on the weekend or anytime, especially during the weekend, you see lines at Social, you see lines at Town Tavern. So, I mean, people are wanting to know, is there another alternative to eating, especially if you have young kids and you want to feed them and get on rather than sit for a couple hours waiting for a reservation. So I guess the question is, where would you put it that would be suitable to people on Main Street or Sunset? And I don't know. That would certainly be an issue, but I agree with you, Doug. There's a need.
Main point, where do you put them? You don't want to put them on town property. Because I think we need to be neutral.
But you said we don't allow, but we do.
Kevin wasn't here, will you elaborate on our current ordinance with food trucks?
Yeah, we allow them for special events. You know, I think the church had something going on, First Baptist had some stuff going on, or like trout derby, special events like that, they've been allowed. But to allow them consistently, whether it be on public property or private property, we need to address the ordinance. And that's what I shared a few years ago, the same kind of thing, if we're gonna do it. We can do something on public property if you want to, or we can say private property only. I'll go back to what Lenore is doing. They had a pilot program back in 2017 where they started to introduce food trucks on either town-owned or town leased property. And I checked with Hillground a little while ago, and he said they only allow it now on private property. They got out of the whole making property available for food trucks. But yeah, that's 8 years ago when they started that pilot program, but they still allow them in their downtown. But I think there was a time back right after COVID that we opened the door a lot because there was no options. There was no food in restaurants. And so food trucks was a way to provide food source. So we've talked about it a couple different times. And since COVID, probably twice. This makes 3. So whatever you want us to do, we'll take a look at it. I did call or email today the owners across the street from the town hall, the vacant lot, see if they would be open to allowing 1 or 2 trucks in there for a period of time, occasionally, maybe on weekends, just to help offset some of the demand. I haven't heard back yet, but that might be a good centralized location. Maple Street lot would be a good location, very close to that.
How about down at the antique shop on Sunset?
Yeah, that could be available too. It's a little further walk from the core of town, but it may serve a purpose there too.
I think primarily for young families with children, and the children are hungry, it's hard to, get them to wait for an hour to be able to get in somewhere. And I think, in that scenario, food truck would be very helpful for anybody who's had young children or, grandkids and they're hungry and if you wait an hour or 2, then you've got, then you have bad humored children and it's messed up your whole day. It could have.
Well, it's
Bad
funny
humored
that
children.
the chamber should be involved in this. They could put 2 food trucks over there next to their building on Saturday and Sundays.
What I don't understand is the benefit to the citizens of Florida property. Help me with that, because people are not coming here with their small children because we don't have food trucks. The park is full of kids, so. So they came here knowing that they were gonna eat somehow. You know, it's like, we're not keeping people here or attracting young families because we don't have food trucks.
David, I would just say that if people can't eat or it's not convenient, maybe they start looking for a different, place to go, like West Jefferson. West Jefferson is, if you haven't been over there, go check it out, because they're doing a lot of stuff. So, but I know what you're saying, and I don't know if that would drive somebody away, but if they can't get what they're looking for, they're gonna go somewhere else.
Well, I think that there is certainly a demand for July 4th Day Parade. And, during these larger events, I do agree that it's hard to find a place to eat. I'm not convinced that the demand is there. And then, unlike you, Doug, you know, I have a deep commitment for people that establish, put roots down, brick and mortar. Restaurateurs and merchants that have, you know, made that investment in this community. And then then I don't know how food trucks are regulated either. I don't know. That's important to me.
They have to be inspected by the health department, just like a restaurant.
So we would have no oversight
I don't
in
know about
terms
that.
of a business permit or a.
I don't know about that, if that's coming that far.
Well, I was gonna say, I think it depends on, let's say we're all in agreement, we will do food trucks. Maybe if we're gonna do them these days, these times, these places, whatever, we probably need to develop a system to be able to permit them, or allow them, or to govern them, or to control them, or whatever term, whatever you want to, right? So I don't think we're gonna issue a business permit necessarily, but there's probably something very similar that we would want to do to try to have some level of control of whatever we were discussing. If we were even to get to that point, versus just, all right, come one, come all, anywhere you want to, which I don't think that's what I'm hearing, definitely not hearing that. But
First off, we'd have to change the ordinance, correct?
Need to. You can do some type of pilot program. Understanding, you know, for what's coming up next couple of weeks, it's gonna be really busy. Have some kind of draft ordinance coming, but you want to do something in the interim. It's probably the way to do that.
So there's the food trucks on public property, whatever that is. Then there's food trucks on private property. Are we only talking about food trucks on public property? What is the process? So there's been a food truck at Special Trout recently. What was the process for that, or is it?
There's
Last week there's been.
I just found out today there was one today.
Yeah, so
They're just not supposed to be.
Please show up.
so that's not supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be there, I just found out today. What kind of food truck is it? I don't know.
Is it their
It
food
depends
truck?
on what kind,
I don't know if they're serving alcohol.
No, I don't think.
Oh, no.
I didn't know it was there until this morning.
no. Special trout, for instance, did a special permit for trout, right, and included food trucks.
I knew that.
We're not aware of this, I wasn't aware of it until right now, that was something going on. But technically, if it's not a special event, vacation Bible school event at the church, those are typically handled through Kevin's office. They do a special permit of some sort, so they may send an email and say, if it's something real simple, we want to have an ice cream or a slushy truck for vacation Bible school. We typically approve those just really formally to say, yes, these are the parameters within that.
you know,
We're not supposed
Is
to.
this one still operating now, though? I mean,
the Red Hen, I think his name, Paula and Matt
Scarlet.
Ferguson, Scarlet Hen, they set up for weddings, but that's before that event only. You know, they set up down there at the American Legion. They're providing food service for their wedding or their reception, whatever it might be. Not a big deal. We don't deal with that. But itinerant merchants is not allowed, not only in just central business, they're not allowed in town. Used to be. The itinerant merchants that were allowed was only, someone selling produce out on 321. And this is back 20 years ago. Well, then when Moss Produce set up where the daycare is, 20-something years ago, council at the time said, all right, we're not gonna allow sale of produce out on 321. Because someone has established a brick and mortar or a place to sell their merchandise. So council at the time did away with it. There's been no change to the code since then. So itinerant merchants and flower sales and bird houses and all this kind of stuff, it's not allowed to just set up shop anywhere you want to. So,
But if the chamber came to you and said, we would like to have 2 food trucks on ABC weekend, you could approve that, for
Well, you
interim
could be
stuff or
approved.
whatever.
you would probably be approving, especially if it involved public facilities or streets or cleanup or police.
No, I'm not saying on public property, I'm saying private property, being the chamber. That'd be the same thing as speckled trout doing, wouldn't
If it's a special event, but that speckled trout, that came to you.
it? Right, that was in their special event.
Right. So I'm not, it wouldn't matter if it was a chamber or somebody else.
I guess what I'm asking is, what's it take? You can approve a food truck down at the Baptist church for a special event, right? I mean, for vacation.
So there's
hours.
different special events. There's some that are public, like speckled trout, or the trout derby.
Okay.
And then there's private events.
In
So
order,
they don't serve the public.
They're not serving to the public, they're serving for their business, for
Constituents.
PBS.
Okay. All right.
in order for the chamber to do it, it has to be something in correlation with like Arden Park,
Yeah,
have to do one of our
right.
events.
And you know, the Arden Park.
Could just
deal-
be for the day.
yeah, just because you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Right, the Arden Park thing, you know, the Boy Scouts and so on.
Yeah, I was gonna say Boy Scouts are
Yeah, I
there.
guess they still do. And that was kind of hands off, let the Boy Scouts sell that.
And
It's traditional and it's not been touched.
the library?
Well, I think that's what they do. Or maybe the library sells it too.
Yeah, they do.
I haven't been over.
They do a great job.
I know all the details. There's a lot of stuff that happens at 5 o'clock. But back to the question, to do it right, we need to change the ordinance that will allow food trucks and whatever provisions y'all want to allow, so that it's consistent, we got something to go to, say, okay, you can have a food truck here, or you want a special event that you're gonna run an application through council to be approved.
That would be something that'd be good to have a public hearing.
Well, if we change the ordinance, we have to.
Yeah.
I guess we just need to gather some guidance of whether or not we're heading in that direction or what, because there's gonna be some steps to what's that ordinance change even looks like. What all does it entail? You know, in certain areas, what are we doing with the pilot program? Do we wanna just say no altogether and leave it the way it is? I think that's the discussion that we're willing to have, is just some guidance.
Well, I'm just sitting here, you know, thinking about what David said. How do we determine is there a need? How do we determine this is something that is good for the community? I don't know. I don't know how you do that.
I think first you listen to your restaurants.
But they, you know what that's. Have you talked to
Some of them just said in the past, not this year, but in the past, that, I mean, they couldn't get people in for 2-3 hours. they didn't feel like a food truck would impact negatively. That may change now, I don't
Talked
know.
to a couple, yeah, and you're right, mixed emotions
Yeah.
with talking to some of them. The busier ones that you have to wait on, they feel like it's a food truck, one does not sell the type of food that they would be selling to start with. So anybody wanting to go out to dinner and sit down would not be going to the food truck.
It'd be pretty much, I think, a lunchtime thing.
Yeah, so they didn't, you know, a lot of them didn't feel like it competed with them. But like I said, some people had come to me on this and I said I would bring it out and throw it out and do my due diligence. But like I said, I still stand strongly behind brick and mortar.
Well, council, Shane, wait to hear from council individually, see what they want to do moving forward. You know, it's not a July thing this year, it's not an August thing, but
I think it's something that needs to be considered. I think there is a need for it. I don't think we can house everybody in the restaurants that we have in town between residents and tourists to feed them. I mean, I spent 10 years in the restaurant business, so I kind of did some preliminary figuring, and I'm kind of guessing that we can only feed about 2,500 people at any given time on a Friday or Saturday night. That's not a lot of people, considering that we have 1,400 year-round residents, and then you put any given number of tourists into our town on a Friday or Saturday night. That's not a lot of people to feed at one time.
Give us some thought and maybe share some feedback. If that's fair.
sounds good.
And I kind of showed it today, but
It was very interesting.
Okay.
I've got some numbers I threw together that are probably high numbers, but
Maybe share your thoughts with Melissa.
yeah. I'll be happy to share with people.
Yeah. And of course, the chamber. Several of these last few talks, we need to try to discuss with the chamber and what the thoughts
I think
are.
a survey maybe
Survey, et cetera.
with the restaurants would be good through the chamber.
Following on suit with things we've talked about before, but we've had some changes. Our cemetery, which is extremely loved and in high demand, is out of demand. So we are full. We have no plots left, as in zero. Not one, zero available burial plots to sell from the town of Plum Rock. We started selling burial plots in what year, Hillary, do you know?
I think it goes back, and Doug may know better than me, but what I found is it goes, some of the deeds are back to the 40s, maybe even 30s.
At least like Doug would know.
Well, he's been here that long, but he knows how long that cemetery's been around.
I was gonna say, about 80 or 90 years, we
Yeah.
think we've been selling plots. And we're officially out as of 2 weeks ago? I think 2 weeks ago, we sold our last.
Week before I went on vacation, I talked to a guy on that Wednesday, and he bought the last one.
So just checking in, nobody's checking in.
No, that's,
It's a
They check out.
Maybe 3 hours parking.
so what we have talked about, and we talked about it at least 5 or 6 years ago, the first time I recall. We still had several hundred, and then we had a couple hundred, and then we went through this phase in which we were selling. A year or two ago, we were selling them every day. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was after the pandemic and all the other things going on in the world and the hurry, I don't know what it was, but burial plots were selling
Pandemic
like
started, and then it just took off.
2 or 3 a day.
We charge more for the view lots.
So where we are is we have space available in our current plot up there. However, we have determined several years ago that a good majority of that is very rocky. It's very difficult to bury into. So our question, same question we asked 5 or 6 years ago, was do we want to say we're finished, we're full, and we maintain and we do all the things that were needed? Now I'll say that the cemetery is not full. There's a lot of plots that have been sold that are not used. So there's the private
Vacationers.
the private market of those burial plots. The resale market of that, which is a real thing. Yeah, so it's a real thing.
Yeah, and sometimes people will call, in all seriousness, people will call and say, my father, my mother, somebody passed away, I'm going through their stuff, I have a deed here, we don't need these plots, and they'll sell them back. But unless they do that, we can't do anything with them because they've been sold, so, to somebody. So they may
So
not all be used, but.
You know, remember, this came up this has come up a lot in the
It has.
last 8 years.
Yeah.
And at one time, wasn't someone going to have discussions with Hampton Funeral Home and Barnes and Noble, whatever?
So we had discussions some years ago with Greg Hampton and the Hamptons and all that, but obviously that's changed. Greg passed away. We let it be for the time being. We have not brought back this topic in a few years at least. We just need to gather some thoughts on next steps. Are we wanting to be done with it? I guess that's option one, nothing. Option two, not in any particular order, is that we solicit out to the area funeral homes of whether there's interest for them to partner with us, mausoleums, or columbariums, or things that are above ground. I know columbariums are very popular and you're being utilized in a lot of places now for your ashes, and then mausoleums are, of course, above ground burial plots. We can do that. We could inquire what it would look like for us to do those things, whether or not we want to build those, maintain those, sell those. I think there's different options there that we haven't put a tremendous amount of effort into recently, because I guess we need to gather a little bit of thought and feedback so us staff can determine maybe our next steps and what we're looking at there.
Are they cheaper than parking decks?
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot cheaper than parking decks. Average parking space is $50,000 in the town of Little Rock. That's a true number, give or take, to build a parking space. I think our average burial.
It is long-term parking.
That's good. David, I'll tell you what, you can leave if you want.
I think that I would reach out to, Austin Barnes from Barney Hampton, and the other person who had interest was Adam Ryan.
That's right.
And see if they would want to do something on the property, what's left there that's rocky. And if they don't, then I say we're done, because there's really nothing else that we can do.
Is everybody good with that? I think from our perspective, the last thing we would want to do is option 3, which is to build all this ourselves to try to maintain. We're not in this business, this is not what we do. I think it would make more sense for us. Right now, our Public Works Department handles that. So they handle the opening and closings of the graves. That's what they do. They don't do anything to do with the funerals or, we leave that up to the funeral homes. I think what I'm hearing is the same type of thing. Are there, after discussions, is there interest out there with potential options? If not, then we'll bring that back to you. If there is, we'll bring it back to you and let you know what they are. That's fair. We've not been serious about it in a few years, just given the fact that we just haven't had the need. We had plenty of spots even just a few years ago that have exhausted themselves in the past year and a half. So as of right now, we are sold out. What I'm hearing from you all from getting that head nod is that we as staff need to reach out to some of these individuals that are in this business and see if there's interest in that area and what that would even be, whether that's columbariums or mausoleums or combination of both, or nothing. Bring that to you.
Yes. Y'all go with that?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, that was quick. All right, next is something new we have not discussed, code of conduct.
This is great reading.
Yeah.
About 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Let me pull it up here, just for everyone to be able to see at home. So we started a conversation back, I can't remember, somebody can probably help me exactly when. It's been a number of months ago. It was probably even close to a year ago, with our current code of ethics or code of conduct. I think we call it currently our code of ethics. It's a pretty short document, about 6 pages. You can find it on our website. talks about different things, with regards to your positions, elected officials. We started talking about it with regards to not only you all, but to our boards, and what standards are we holding our board members to? And so in the last year, we've really had this discussion several times, and we discussed it even when we retreated a little bit. And so I was charged with staff with putting together an example. What you have before you, what was in the packet, and then what's up on the screen here is an example. It has Blowing Rock's name on it. It's a combination. I will not take credit. There's some of this that's original. There's a lot of this that is a mixed match of a lot of other places to get to where we are. So the thought today was we would have this discussion, comments, et cetera, as we roll through this. We can roll through it relatively quickly. We can stop and go through it, line by line. But for this to be something that we were to move towards, ultimately you adopting, this would be your vote at a formal meeting to adopt whatever document we're happy with. And then this would also impact our boards and our members, our appointed members, not just our elected officials. So if I start here, I think everybody can kind of see on the screen and see at home, just kind of roll through with the beginning table of contents, overview of council members' roles and responsibilities, general policies and protocols, conduct, elected official EOA, elected official conduct of one another, conduct of town staff, conduct of the public, council conduct of other public agencies, council conduct of boards and commissions, and conduct of the media. Now, as you go through and see this in more detail, it does refer to in the opening paragraphs the policy purpose. The Town of Blowing Rock Town Council has adopted a code of ethics and conducts for elected officials and appointed officials for members of the town council and the town boards and commissions to assure public confidence in the integrity of local government, effectiveness, fair operations. So everything this thereafter is not only you all, it's the boards and appointed officials as well. And there's points in here, if you've read through it, that specify whether we're talking appointed officials versus elected officials in some of these areas. So
Shane, I feel like, I read over it 3 times. And it's very lengthy.
thank you.
Would it be something that Joy might need to look at and maybe cut it down, because there is certain sections that apply to us that don't apply to board members and vice versa?
Potentially, I've not shared this with Joe yet. So this is, hot off the presses, so to speak. So we've not gone any further than what you have in front of you and the email you received. So.
And nothing against the mayor, but when it says council members or town council, in whole, does that include the mayor, or is that just?
You know, I'm excluded from this totally.
Right, that's my question, because a lot of it states the town council. So is that inclusive?
I would think it would be.
We can either add it, or we can refer to it in the opening paragraphs that council members are including all council members and the mayor. I think that's probably maybe an easier way of doing it. We can do not a definition, but we can do an opening paragraph that under the policy purpose that says, here or thereafter, the term council members includes all members of the council, including the mayor, something like that. It's probably an easier way of doing it. That is probably a Joey question, because that's the type of stuff that he does every day, and we pay him to do. But that language piece, we could put in there, what defines council member, or council person, or whatever.
But elected official covers all of it.
Elected official does, but
The council.
as you go through this, there are certain paragraphs that says the town council members shall be not do this or not do this, which I wanted to make sure that meant all of us are just
Right.
council members.
Yeah, again, just the reason for the breakdown here was some of this has already been specified within our current code, but it was to elaborate with not just how we conduct business when we're up here on a Tuesday night or today for a special meeting, but to elaborate when we're in the public or we're dealing with staff or how we're dealing with other board members and elected officials. So it does elaborate how we conduct the meeting. Oh, we just walked in, so how does he know who to talk to? What's the proper way of conducting business with media and things of that nature? So we can definitely edit this, shorten this, lengthen this, whatever. It is ultimately your document. I just want to put something before you to start gathering some feedback and to gather some.
I think it's good to have Joey look at it, get his thoughts, maybe edit it, and if the council has any thoughts on removal or addition to something, to get with you. I mean, it's very thorough. You spent a lot of time on that shit.
What's today's intention to go through it?
I'm asking.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm asking you. You've had it now for a few days, right? You've had a chance to look through it perhaps, and just want to, so ultimately, whether it's July 8th or August the 9th or September, whatever our dates are, if we're going to make this official, we need to bring this before the public. Not from a public hearing standpoint. That is not required. This is not an ordinance. This is for you all and our appointed boards to adhere to. So we would need this to be voted on, and it would be entered into our official personnel policy within the town. There's a page at the end that requires signature, that's been read, that's been agreed to. There's not if you get to sanctions, so just kind of going through it, David, we've read through kind of the first date. The sanctions of elected officials are different than sanctions of appointed boards, and it specifies that because that's come up in the past year is if we have board members that are appointed and they're doing or violating some of these things, what's our actionable items? What's our sanctions, or what do we have that we can do? You as elected officials are different than that, right? You're voted on by the public. There's only a few things that are even legal that are out there. So Joey would need to look at this and make sure he agrees with it, of course, before we do anything further. I just wanted to put it on here to see if there was desires to talk about anything or be against anything, change anything, or.
If we had notes, would it be easier for us just to send those to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's bigger whole list. If today was, you don't like this and we want to scrap it, I want to know that, of course, right? But if you think we're off to a good start, then maybe we need to tweak it or delete some stuff or edit some stuff, that type of thing. That's what I'm asking. Are we on to something that we're okay with? Because this was, again, trying to be organic here. This was some of your thoughts on developing something like this.
This is something that's much needed and it's timely, so like Charlie said, let Joey take a look at it, get it back, and let's get it done.
And if you do have changes, what I would say is I can go ahead and send it to Joey and let him start looking through it, maybe over the next week or two, next couple of weeks, maybe provide some feedback. And I will share that with everyone, as we get it, what that looks like, if that's fair.
Yeah.
Y'all go with that? Doug, I'll make sure I mention this one.
Yeah, make sure you put, that's,
My name and then,
put name.
So from as I said, before we go into closed session, just as we can rehash, one to just rethink Hillary for food and all the work that goes into this and all the departments for being here and the work that they do each and every single day. What I have for next steps, actionable items, if I can just make sure we understand where we are, is Highway 321 safety is coming to you all on the 8th of July, the next meeting. That is for the median extension loading zones. Again, we're going to be bringing that back for discussion purposes as well on July 8th. Parking and shuttle, we've got work to do on what our next steps are. Food trucks, same kind of thing. I need to gather some feedback from you all on what we want to do. Cemetery, we're going to be staff reaching out to our partners that are in that line of work and seeing what interest level there is and providing back some feedback and results. And then code of conduct to you all owe me some thoughts and changes and Joey to review and do the same on his end.
The loading zones, you mentioned, right?
Yep, it's on the, I've got it on the 8th for right now. Yeah, we're gonna try to gather some feedback between now and then, but, we know we can come forth with Sunset as being an option. Main Street's gonna be one of those. I'm not hearing that we know enough right now that we can tell DOT to change anything. I think we let them, from what I'm gathering, we let them do what they were gonna do, and then we can go back and potentially change that if need be.
So, who is reaching out to the chamber on loading zones and food trucks?
I'll meet with Robin and go through and have a discussion.
I think that would be great.
Is that a fair summation of what we talked about?
Did you get all that, Nick?
Okay.
There's a video game.
All right.
Got a closed session
Okay.
coming up. We'll take a 5-minute break, but go ahead there.
Okay, our closed session has to do with North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11.6, personnel matters.
We'll get back in 5 minutes, staff.